is you're trying to make an open book about the size of a bathroom tile. All right, let's do it. So what I'm doing right now is I'm conditioning the clay. We just went over this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna condition the clay. That means just making it a little bit warmer so that it's easier to work with, okay? I have a block of clay. This is all Sculpey, except for that head there. This is all Sculpey medium that I'm using, which is a gray clay. Just released Sculpey medium, which is an easier to work with clay as opposed to like one of the Sculpey firms or something like that. But you want to make sure that when you're conditioning it, that it gets nice and soft so that it's easier to manipulate. Once you do this part, it will make your life easier in the long run. But when you're conditioning clay, make sure that you're not folding a lot of air bubbles into it, because that will affect the clay when you're baking it. It will cause micro fissures in it. So you want to make sure that it is, when you're conditioning it, that you're squeezing all of the air out and that you're not folding air bubbles into it. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going to flatten this piece out as best we can into a bookish shape. Nice and flat. For something like this, if I was to work on it and I was actually going to bake it, I would take a piece of paper or a block or something like that to actually work with. So we'll put it on the block here, make it a little bit easier. That way you can actually pick it up, move it around, that kind of stuff. So we're going to take our roller out and just kind of give ourselves a little bit more flat area here to work with. If you want to try and keep it size of the block here, we can just kind of push our clay back up and around. Okay, and I'm going to thin out one. If you look at the roller there, okay, thinning out one side towards center, thinning out the other side towards center. Okay, then we can also use our knife here to kind of give us a center line like that. Okay, so if you notice that it's actually thinner towards the center, so it kind of fades back, right? Same thing, so we're just gonna use our knife here and just gonna clean up our edges. You can, obviously, spend the time to actually make it nice and square and all of that. I'm just showing you the down and dirty, quick and easy way of creating a fake book, okay? So now what I would wanna do is, now that we have an idea of like the spread of the pages, like so, the next thing I want to do is I'm going to take a knife, a blade, something like this. If you don't have a knife that's available, take a tile, take the edge of a piece of metal, anything that you've got that's got a flat edge to it. And what we're going to do is we're going to come in here to the edge and we're going to lay in our line. So we're going to take it and we're going to press down. Okay, so we can create an edge there. We're going to do the same thing on this other side. And this is going to be where our cover sits. Okay, so we're going to come in here and we're going to flatten that edge out like that, to kind of, because the cover of the book is going to be a little bit wider than the pages themselves. So we're just going to come in here and we're going to manipulate this down. There we go, that side, and then lastly we're going to do this side here. Okay, so we're going to come in here and clean these edges up again because we squished the clay over. There you go, squish the clay over. So now we've got an idea of where our cover sits. Okay, so that is going to give us the beginning of it. Now, we want the book to look like it's laid flat, so the pages are manipulated over. Take a bit of clay, roll a ball, then roll a nice little column. Okay, and we're going to lay the column about a little bit from center. We don't want to go, we're not going clear to the center, we want to go a little bit off from center. We're going to chop it there. We're also going to chop it on the other side, like that. Then I want you to take one more little bit of clay. We're going to roll one more littler column of clay. And we're going to lay that right next to it on the other side. Okay, so we're going to trim this one as well so it's nice and flat on both sides. And then we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. And this is going to give us, and don't let it be the exact same shape, okay? Because you want there to be pages, but you want the pages to be a different, the book is open in a different location. So again, pull it a little bit in from the center, trim those edges out so that we're nice and flat, too far. Now this is just gonna rough it in. We'll go in there and clean up the overall look of it in a minute. And then we've got the same thing, another little tiny bit of clay. We can stick in there, and we're going to trim this one back as well. 1 and 2. There we go. So now we've got these 2 little speed bumps here, okay? Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to manipulate the material down and towards the center. So you can use a flat edge of a bit, you can use a spoon part of it. I'm going to actually use my other favorite tool, which is this knitting needle that I've curved on one side, but it's flat on the other. As you're blending this clay in, we're not going to press the clay down. We don't want to just pull the clay at ourselves, because what that's going to do is it's going to tear at the clay, and it's going to create issues with the look of the clay when we're trying to blend it. So as we're pulling this down towards that center line, we're going to roll it. Okay, so we're going to roll it down as opposed to just pushing it straight down, okay? Don't worry about it if it starts to roll a little bit more towards center. That's perfectly fine, because we're going to manipulate that in a minute here. But we want to roll this down towards center. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Roll it down towards center. So we're twisting the material. They're twisting the tool so that the material doesn't just pull. We don't want to pull it, all right? So now that we've got it locked in there towards the center, we're going to use our other sculpting tool, which will be our thumb here, and we're going to pull. Kind of press that one in there at an angle, and then we're going to pull this material down until it smooths out. Okay, manipulate your clay, make sure that it holds itself. You do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to push this one back in, kind of push it down just a little bit at an angle. That's why we have a smaller roll on this side, so that we have our volume already built into that. And then we're just going to start to manipulate that clay down towards the edge. I'm going to press it out into the rest of the book. Like that. It's going to give us our the little lump there, okay? Now we can actually come back with this tool on the outside of it, just kind of roll it a little bit smoother. There we go. So now we've kind of got that manipulated towards the center. Now we don't want it to be a peak. We want it to actually look like it's got a, you know, that's folding over it. So we want to make sure that we roll this edge. I like to use spit as a, to help me to smooth the clay out. I don't actually spit on my, I just collect the saliva from my tongue. I don't actually lick my fingers here. You don't want to do that, because this is polymer clay. It's PVC. You don't want to be actually eating and ingesting the polymer clay here, but I'm going to use it to help me smooth this out. Now, if you notice, I pulled the clay this way with my thumb towards the edges of the book. Now I'm going to smooth it in the opposite direction. Okay, and that's going to allow me to get nice smooth transition with the clay. All right, so now I want to come back here, and we're going to use the other knife blade here. We're going to come back in here, and we're going to reintroduce our stitch line here, which is where the pages are manipulated. All right, so that's where our center is going to be. Now what we can do is start coming in here and cleaning up the edges of it, because this is where it's really going to start to turn into a book. So I'm going to use the rounded part of my tool here, and this is, again, you notice I'm using a little bit of spit on the finger. This is where we're going to start to manipulate the look of the edges of the pages, okay? So come in here, and if you just do little bits of curves there, and then flatten it out, like so. And come over here to this side. If you notice, we've got extra clay here. We're going to cut some of that off. Now with the book jacket, okay, with the book, because it's going to have the spine of the book, we want to make sure that we include that in here. So we're going to come in here towards the center of the book, and we're going to manipulate this edge down just a little bit more. Okay, and we're going to cut it again, there. And then what we'll do is we'll come in here with a tool. We can either use the round tool or the knife tool there, and we're going to press a hole on either side. Just kind of angle that over there. And that's going to give us the appearance of there being a spine to the book that it's open to. Let's kind of manipulate that in there just a little bit. So you can see how we have the edge of the book there. All right. And just because it's a tutorial, we'll only really manipulate one side so you can kind of see how we're going to work this. Now that we've got it laid out, we know where the center of the pages are. We can, if you want to, go in here and kind of clean this up so it's not just a cut. So it's actually the page is open to that, or the book is open to those pages. Like that. So it doesn't look like just a cut in there. Now we're going to come in here with the edge of this, and we're going to start to manipulate the look of it so that we actually see pages in here. Now, people will think, well, I've got to go in and put every individual page. You don't. So you can use the edge of a knife to kind of give yourself the look of the book, or this is what we were talking about before, using something like a rake. This is another tool that is included in my kit here. And we can come in here, and this will actually give us 4 at the same time. And then as you're pulling it towards the edge of the book, turn it sideways so that you don't show all of the tines all the way across. So we start out flat and then move it sideways. Same thing here. We start flat, and then as we get to the thinner part, we turn it sideways. Okay, so we can see all the different book pages there. Now, you're like, but that looks rough as all get out. Absolutely, it does. So what we can do is we can take a little bit of rubbing alcohol. Just a little bit. A little dab will do you. And then we're going to take a brush. We don't want to use a lot of rubbing alcohol on here because it will manipulate the clay. But then if we draw it, to drag it, basically push it along the same lines as where the pages are, it'll soften those lines up a little bit to make it look more like pages in a book. Okay. Now, if you overdo it, not a big deal. Come back in here, manipulate it back in here. You manipulate the clay to kind of put those pages back in there. Then we can come in and softly with the brush add your pages back in there. And then on this side here where we have the larger knife pieces, we can actually, you know, manipulate it a little bit more if we want to. Smooth that out with a little bit more alcohol. Okay, so now we've got the edges of the book. Now, this edge here where we have our cover, okay, we're going to cut again the edge of this book over there. So we have the cover, and we can go in here and, you know, spend your time to make this actually look good. You know, just there we are, some nice manipulation of it. Now, when you open up a book like this, the pages don't sit completely flat. Okay, they're gonna like this page here is gonna end closer to the edge or closer to the center. Okay, because that page has got the most lift to it, and then we're going to see individual pages from there. So I would come in here now and use my edge of my blade here until I get to the edge. And as I'm going down, they're getting closer and closer together. And then I'm going to start to pull them down towards the edge. And then I'm going to be cutting into the side here. Okay, now if you get a little balloon out like I had there, you can always go and cut that part off. Okay, so now we've got the pages looking like they're pulling out. So you've got, you know, more page, you're getting the step down of pages as opposed to all these pages, you know, so it makes it look more like the book is open as opposed to just, you know, a bunch of fake looking pages. Now you can come in here, once we've got that done, we can come in here and start manipulate the cover. Go back to the cleaned up side here. Come over here to this side of the cover, and we're going to come back up to where we were. Now we're also going to put a little bit of gap underneath here. Let that come out and reintroduce our angle here. Cut that little bit out. Notice we're just pulling a little bit of clay out. It's not going all the way through the book. It's just a little bit there to help it make it look like it's standing up on, or that the spine of the book is manipulated down. And then we've got just enough of the cover clay. I can come in here and just add any manipulation to the page sides that we need to do. Okay, and then if I wanted to, you know, we could come in here and then actually put in, make sure we're squaring everything up, nice and square, nice and pretty. Now, if we wanted to, what we could do is we could take this piece here, kind of curve it a little bit so that we see the page underneath it. Take a little bit of clay, just a little bit, not a lot of it, just a little bit. We're going to create a little triangle. I'm going to lay it right on the edge there. We're going to use our roundy tool and again, roll the clay. Don't pull it. Don't push it. We just want to roll it. Okay. Come back in on the other side. We're going to use our tool to create a nice little curled over edge of that page there. So it looks like it's being used. And then if you wanted to, now would be the time to come in here and actually start to manipulate out your page decorations. So most of the books wouldn't have actual writing on it. They would just have like kind of the scribbly lines that are on it. This is how most, if you ever see any like sculpted books or anything like this, this is how they would do it. But they would have like the one big letter here. There you are. So a really quick tutorial on how to sculpt a flat open book out of a chunk of clay so that you can use it as like a base for a figure or something like that later on, or just to have a nice little sculpture of a book. Fairly straightforward. Thanks, guys.